Yo, what's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? It's a new year, so let's start off by saying Happy New Year to all the people that are out there. For those that don't know, I go by the name of QuHarrison. I am the author of the NFT Handbook. You can get that anywhere books are sold. And if you don't know, the NFT Handbook is your guide to learn everything about NFTs, from how they're created, how to buy them, how to collect them, how to do whatever you really need to. This show that you're about to watch, because we're doing some new things. We're now entering the video verse, right? This is our first show where we actually have live video as well. So if you're listening via audio, you don't only have to listen in your car and on your daily commutes. You can now check us out live from your YouTube or wherever you like to watch your videos. And yeah, this is new for me and Cowdrey.
Yeah, I had to trim up the beard for this one, man.
I think that's what I've realized. There's not a lot of content out there about NFTs that is also visual. So ideally, with this show, we can now showcase some of the fascinating NFTs that we've been talking about, is as it has been in what 2021, 2022. So
Exactly, yeah.
I want to talk about blue chip NFTs because I feel like that's what the name of the game is all about now, right? If you
Oh,
are
for sure.
into NFTs, I think the thing that most people have realized is you have to have some type of precedent. Like, you have to be based in something. Like, how do you know if your NFT is worth anything? And I don't think you can only rely on these rarity tools, because if you do that, you're gonna be stuck in this never-ending game of, I have, edition 158 and it's rare because it has these five traits. But what we've quickly realized in the past 9 months is that nobody really cares about those traits, dude.
No, no, it's just about ownership and a floor price. But that's, who knows? Maybe collectible NFTs really don't ever reach blue chip status. I
You
think
think
they're
that you really think that the collectible NFTs will never really, like, let's talk about collectible NFTs for a second. So, like, the
yeah.
punks, I think that they've reached blue chip status. But is that because they're a Genesis drop, or what do you think there?
So I've got a theory that like every new category creator or format creator for NFTs, like the first one or the first notable one, is going to become a blue chip product. So I think that um obviously punks have for what seems as of now, they probably are a blue chip NFT, right?
I would agree with that.
Yep. And only time will tell 10 years from now, but I also think they showed us the wave with the PFPs and profile pictures and 10K things. So they kind of created that format. And then you see all these other people copy it, which only like makes this original kind of worth more, in my opinion, right? You have all these people copying the format. And the original is kind of the cool one at the end of the day. So I think that like category creators or people who create a new format of NFTs will exist as blue chip NFTs. And I think like obviously blue chip status is like a retrospective thing. So we can't, it's like predicting right now would be like, in 1920 being like, oh, what's gonna be the most rare car that we can own? It's like
Yeah.
you only had the Model T back then. You only had a couple options.
Right.
You didn't even consider that, for Enzo Ferrari would go and make cars and Rolls
Well,
Royce and all these things.
the thing about that, right, is, when you ask, where does value originate? And when I think about it, I think about value originating from the community, because it's really the community that creates the value for you. And in the
Mhm.
case of the Model T Ferrari, I mean, not the Model T Ferrari.
Hey man, I want one of
That sounds
those.
that sounds kind of fly though, the Model T Ferrari. But in the case of your Model T analogy, right? It's the car enthusiasts that create the value for the 1920 Model T.
Mhm.
And when you think about it, you're like, if the car enthusiast community was not there, would there ever be an opportunity to own a car that's almost a hundred, that's over 100 years old? Probably not. I mean, we don't see. I don't see Telegrams selling for that much. Like the machine, like, I don't see that happening.
Xerox machines aren't worth anything today.
Yeah, like, I don't see that happening. So, like, I think that, like, it's the community, and that's what we've seen with these NFT projects. Even if you look at, like, the punks or the Bored Ape Yacht Clubs, or
Mhm.
some of the newer projects, it's the community that's carrying these things. So as long as they can keep that community going, maybe that is the like which community has the most potential to become a blue chip project.
Yeah, that's probably a better way to frame it. Because like I think inevitably there are going to be, kind of more so like one-off artists that become blue chip creators. I think that Beeple is the standard, right? Where it's like, oh, this guy, he's not necessarily issuing, a 10K project, but he's creating art. He's kind of like, just he does them every day, but there's a lot of other creators who might put out a piece once a month or like a couple a year, right? And so like their community is so much smaller. The number of people that are enthused by it, that like looking at the stuff is massive, but the number of people who actually collect it is very small, right? And so I think that that's also like when you talk about community, it's kind of like there's a subset. You have the grand community of people who look at your thing, but you also have the smaller community of people who actually own it. And I think both have to kind of play a part in it, right? You have the people who can afford what you're putting out, but also just the people who are there to be a voice and to share your stuff, right?
No, that's real. That's real. That's super real. Like I I I I agree. So moving onward a little bit, like I think we agree that like there's the community element that creates the blue chip NFT, and like that's what perpetuates it. But what else? Like what else do you think makes a blue chip artist?
So I want to kind of go back to a older conversation that you had, and the reason that we're even putting together this podcast episode on Blue Chip NFTs is we had a Twitter Space about this a while back with David Sally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Obviously huge artists in just the contemporary art scene now, kind of dropping his own NFTs, and he had a great perspective on like what creates blue chip status in the traditional art world, and a lot of that is when you're saying blue chip status, it's you've essentially created a consensus around like the art world, right? You unconsciously a bunch of people have had this consensus and been like, yeah, that's super valuable art. We all believe that it's super valuable art. And like consensus is often created by what David was saying is it's created by gatekeepers, right? You have your galleries, you have your auction houses, you have your tastemakers. All of these are gatekeepers who whether they work in unison or just kind of in their own little silos and create this consensus, they've all, the gatekeepers are the ones who, kind of put the art in the door, they get the right eyeballs on it. And then they, over time, this consensus is created that it perpetuates itself where it's like, oh, this guy was in the Louvre. Of course, we're going to keep like kind of putting his stuff on auction and we're going to keep doing this and that. And so you kind of have, the the players in the space are the ones who kind of create this blue chip status just by continually perpetuating this cycle. And when you talk about NFTs, there's not necessarily those types of gatekeepers. Every marketplace has their featured section, and people have their own virtual galleries, but the gatekeepers aren't quite as solidified.
Well, do you think they'll come with time? Like I think that there's a point to say, this industry in its current state is barely a year old.
Yep. Oh,
And
I definitely think the gatekeepers will come.
yeah,
It just happens naturally, right? Where
right, 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 right.
somebody does a really cool like digital art showcase that we've never seen before, and now all
Yeah.
of a sudden it's like, oh, this dude's great at putting together digital art events. We're gonna trust this dude to put together the next one and the next one, and then all of a sudden it's like naturally happens.
And you're starting to see the who's who of crypto kind of unfold before our eyes, right? Like you mentioned Mike Winkleman people earlier, and we can go even beyond that and look at Colburn Bell, from the Museum of Crypto Art. And like,
Mhm.
there are people that have influence that are, like Zach at Super Rare. Like, when you start to think about who are the gatekeepers, there are people that can literally change your life in this whole game. Like Pack is another one. So
Yeah, I mean, even if you kind of do the reverse of it, a gatekeeper right now for the NFT market are actually, the whales and the bidders, like
you
you
think
can
so?
I do think so. In a very small, hard to recognize sort of way, but it's a lot easier for somebody to come through it who's got 1,000 ETH and say, "Hey, I'm gonna buy up this whole series of things from somebody." And
Yeah.
now all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, Amir or Mondwar just bought 100 of this person's art, like what's going on here? And I think we saw it take place with over the summer, right when we started NFT QT with
Right.
the twin flames, which was this photography project that had existed for a minute, where this guy just photographed a bunch of twins, right? And he had
Right.
a series of 50 of them. I remember looking at it, and um, we basically saw the floor price jump from like 5 ETH to 20 ETH because some guy bid 20 ETH on one of them, a bigger name guy, and all of a sudden, a month later, the whole floor price has raised like 10x. And so it kind of, you know, sometimes all it takes is one guy to bid on something that all of a sudden it becomes a tastemaker, right?
For sure, for sure. And what's fascinating about that too is, I agree that the whales definitely have a perspective. They also have some influence because yeah, I'm starting to see it too. There's a there was a couple projects. I'm gonna check my phone, and people text me literally as soon as Gary V buys something, as soon
Mhm.
as someone else apes into it. Like Alien Friends is a project that soared because they got the right collectors, right?
Mhm.
Crypto Mauries is also another one that soared because they got the right collectors. And like these are projects that we're mentioning them now. Like the floor, you might have to spend, 1.5 ETH, but like if it does anything like a Board Ape Yacht Club or any of these other projects that we've seen at similar stages, that's why people are rushing into these projects and that they're tracking the wallets is because they're really trying to get rich. Like they're just trying to say, like, hey, and we're also seeing a rush towards altcoins right now. Like a lot of altcoins are starting to see, price movement. I don't know if you saw the Doge Bros or what there's a Bebop coin like
Mhm.
Cowboy Bebop. So like there's an altcoin movement that's like happening and what's funny is they're not even on like they're on Pancake Swap, they're on PooCoin, like they're like there's a whole nother realm that like the NFT wallet watchers have started to transcend into. So when you talk about the influence of like wallet watching and what that has led to, I mean, you're right. Like I think that NFTs inevitably brought forth a new era of wallet watching, one that like I don't think we even had in the DeFi or like the Bitcoin era. Cause like in that era, you were watching the whales with like who had massed a bunch of tokens, but like
Mhm.
that was it. They didn't have personality or like they didn't like go and like, flex on people too often. They were trying to stay
Mhm.
anonymous. Now it's like, yeah, I am this wallet. I do have this collection. Follow me. And like I can make or break your whole career. And so it's
Yeah.
it's it is that is a gatekeeper.
It is funny you mentioned wallet watching because it is. I remember when we were putting together the top 100 sales list initially, and we were trying to track down the buyers of each of these like massive sales, right?
Yeah.
200 plus ETH sales back over the summer, and I was fascinated because you'd go to DApp Radar and you could put somebody's wallet address in, and it'll show their entire portfolio. Like if you
Yeah.
go to OpenSea, you can look at people's NFTs, but if you're on DApp Radar, it breaks it down to the value of your NFT collection, the value of how much you've put in DeFi, other notable coins that you hold, and it was just like this is so fascinating to see. Like now I can look at somebody's entire crypto portfolio at once, and like you said, wallet watching kind of has this force behind it.
No, for sure. And you know what's crazy is like there's a company called Nansen AI.
Yeah, yeah, Nansen. Yep.
Yeah, and
Familiar.
like Nansen's going crazy. Like
Yep.
because of the wallet watchers. Like
Yep.
their whole business exists because people want to do on-chain analysis. They want to wallet watch. And
Yep.
like there's a whole new I'm gonna call them geeks. There's a whole new era of geeks that
Mhm.
will know Nansen, that will know DApp Radar, that will know um probably how to use what's Etherscan. Like, cause if using Etherscan is not an easy skill set. Like
No, not at all.
it's not an easy skill set. And like I think it's a geeky thing that you can geek out on. And if you get good with it, dude, there's gonna be in the next year or so a whole division of analysts that emerge that just know how to use these tools. And they're gonna
Mhm.
give insights to the creators, the collectors, the observers, like for the market, etc. And like we're starting to see it. And it's funny because like traditionally the gatekeeper would do that. But because the transparency and the decentralized nature of the blockchain, anyone can kind of build these skills and get into it. So even if you wanted to learn about NFTs, I would say what wasn't available a year ago was this whole concept of being able to look at the on-chain data, look at the wallets, see what history they have and the historical significance, what's in their wallet. So like, go and see who has what where like if for the majority of apes, what are they collectively buying into? Because instead of just watching Gary Vee and seeing what he's buying or seeing what, Takeoff is buying, why don't you take a step back and see what that community is buying? Because we just said
Mhm.
communities create value for Blue Chip, right? And so in order to go further, what you could do is you can say, let me go get real good at Nansen. Let me go get real good at DAP radar. Let me go get real
Mhm.
good at reading Etherscan. Let me get quick with that because that's a competitive advantage that wasn't available just a year ago.
So true. I love that point. I think wallet watching could probably be a whole podcast because, like, also there's something to it where, to your point, it very much needs to be like someone's full-time job, and a tool is not enough because
Yeah,
guess what? Like if just Stephen Curry, like if you all of a sudden happen upon Stephen Curry's wallet where it's like, okay, he dropped, a bunch of money on his board ape when he bought in, but he was late to the game. I don't
right,
care to know what else he's collecting. I care to know who the first 100 people who bought board apes, what
right,
else are they buying today? And like,
right.
because that's way more important to know, okay, who are the people that are just a little bit ahead of the curve.
Or run analysis on all the people that have power cells, right? Or pair cells and see what are they buying? Like, how are they upgrading their land? And like what's becoming fascinating to just different communities because like
Mhm.
this is the first time where you have that layer of transparency because of the blockchain. And I think that like if I were getting into NFTs today, I probably would consider learning those tools and those skill sets because they're not easy, right? Like I
Oh,
mean,
not at all.
Etherscan is not it's not intuitive, right? Tap radar is confusing because sometimes you look at it, it's one thing, and you look at it another day, it's another thing. And you've got to get a feel for reading that data. When we were writing
Mhm.
the book, Nansen wasn't as cold as it is today. Like, there just wasn't that many transactions. So like this the data that is accessible because of the blockchain and like how open sourced it is, it's just fascinating, man. It's phenomenal to be honest.
Definitely. I want to kind of bring it back to what we're talking about. I know that we kind of went off with gatekeeping and then wallet watching, but I think ultimately what we're kind of driving the irony of this conversation is that we're making a prediction on blue chip NFTs, like
Right.
ultimately, because the only factor that the only variable that matters right here is time.
For sure.
It's a blue chip status is just okay. When the market has seen so many ups and downs, this thing has stayed steady and constant, right? And like
Right.
we're only going to know that with time. And then when I think about time, it's so fascinating because like I look back, the projects that we covered a lot and we were super fascinated by, and like, wow, this is a total game changer, format pusher. Like, this thing's going to be good for years. Like, and then a month later, no one's talking about it. I think a great example is the Tom Sachs rocket factory. Like, I thought that was one of the coolest ideas or concepts right off the bat. That you know they kind of were one of the first to have this idea of collect multiple NFTs so that you can essentially generate a new NFT. And you saw
Right.
then
Right.
Bored
Right.
Ape do it with like the mutant serum and all
Right.
that
Right.
stuff. And like, I look at Tom Sachs and I'm like, dang, he still does his rocket launches. People still collect them a little bit, but it doesn't have that same like 10,000 ETH volume in a week excitement that it once had. And so I think that like sustaining momentum over time is so tough right
Yeah,
now.
it's gonna be key to if you want to sustain momentum right now, it's key that you have a crypto native buyer, right? Because in the Tom Sachs case, maybe you have a bunch of new wallets that are just getting Ethereum for the first time, and they blow a lot of their Ethereum getting into the Tom Sachs project, or they aped into something else, right? And so when you don't have any more Ethereum, it's not easy to just go buy some more magical internet money and put that in there and just keep spending it, right? People want to either make money or they want to like learn from it. And so, like, when you have a crypto native buyer that is used to doing this, I think that they're okay trading crypto for digital objects and experiences. And like I look at like the Meta Crew, which is a derivative of the Meta Key, right? So the Meta Key, which was an early NFT project we covered on NFTQT.com. Not too that was actually that was a year that was almost a year ago. Yeah,
I mean, we included them in the book when we wrote the book,
yeah, yeah.
and we
So
started writing the book about a year ago.
yeah, so it's like, we yeah, so that's crazy, right? It's like they've evolved their community into something that looks entirely different than what they initially promised, but not different in a bad way. It's different in a good way. But that's because they have a crypto native community, right? So they're having fun with like they were making partnerships with NASA and doing, customized gear and drops for Decentraland way before Nike was going in and buying these companies
Mhm,
way before you had even like notable celebrities talking about NFTs. And so I think
mhm.
that, like, because they were talking about bringing celebrities, and like that was the first group that I think showed me the potential of the celebrity in the NFT. Like it was the Meta Key. It wasn't any other project because they were on that literally on day one.
Hmm, that's an interesting take.
Yeah, because I mean, their whole premise was like, "Yo, we're gonna do exclusive events for our members with with exclusive people. We're gonna they have the Meta Academy, remember, where you go get
Mhm,
access to it, and we're gonna have the community teaching that community. The premise of that stuff is good. What Tom Sachs did with the Rockets, it's good. I think these projects have what the DNA of they have what we will initially look back and say, is this the DNA of a blue chip project? There, yes, the community is going to be a big factor, but then when you come back and you look at it through your rose colored glasses, what's going to be really fascinating is the compare and contrast between that project of then and now. Like who's learning from Tom Sachs and implementing it? Because if
mhm.
you're a first mover, what we've learned in the NFT space is you're going to have 1,600 copies of whatever you do, right? Like, so there's going to be 1,600 knockoffs just about of whatever you put out there first. And so,
1,600 on each chain, so
oh,
multiply it by, like, 5, because every chain will have
no, legit. And like if your game is to play whack-a-mole, you're dead, right? Your game is to innovate. So if you're the first mover, you have to continuously innovate and you got to rock with your community and make your community the best and baddest community for whatever you introduced. And
Mhm,
that's been true for every single project. I even think like some of the Genesis projects, it's not as true, but they're Genesis projects, meaning that like if I look at a CryptoPunk, not much has changed between a CryptoPunk then and now. They have a lot more notoriety, and like it's a status symbol, it's like a flex. But like the community of CryptoPunks is more like, yeah, I have a CryptoPunk in my wallet. You don't. But they
no,
introduced bits, right? Like Larva Lab said, like, hey, like we understand what our flaws were here, and like let's do the next project. And they had several other projects, and like they're working on the Meebits project right now. And like there's a very strong community there.
mhm. Yeah, and part of this is it's like you wanna see more volume of ideas, right? For a
Yes,
given
yes.
project. You wanna see them, every month doing something new or unique, or damn near every couple weeks, to
Yeah.
keep people's interests aligned. But the problem is, now that, like, the it seems like the consensus of how you make an NFT project cool and you keep your community going is to go into the metaverse and create these virtual experiences. And as you know, those take a lot of time to put together, a lot of different moving parts. And I kind of am like, there's got to be more ideas outside of we're going to create this virtual space and do cool things there.
For sure, for sure. I mean, but when you ask people what do they want to do in the metaverse and how do they want to experience NFTs, most people want to show them off. They want to be in a space with their friends where they can talk about it. Remember, we had the conversation with Benny Orr about the meeting place and like what that would all ultimately turn into, and what Krista Kim was envisioning. So like we kind of know that people want to hang out. I just don't think we've decided what that destination is. And even in our conversation with Spatial, I spent some time there, and I was able to actually get some of those NFTs. And like, I'm enamored to see my NFTs in a virtual environment. But like, the question is, in 2022, which one of these metaverse experiences is going to win out? So then you can get what you're asking for right now. Like, what's beyond having like just your standard rudimentary programming? and like
Mhm.
what is the engagement, what's the activity, how do we go skiing together in the metaverse, and then like I can rock my cyber CryptoPunk 4000, like the knockoff, regenerative project on my chain while I'm skiing. Like, because we're gonna get there. I mean, like, we're gonna get there. Like, I mean, like, I've got a lot of Bored Ape gear in Decentraland. I haven't decked my avatar out yet, but it came when I was in Apeville.
Mhm. Hmm. Yeah, no, I think like part of me wants to just say that it's tough to stay intrigued and interested in these. One, if they're not like going up, like if they're going up in value a ton, it's so easy to just like keep watching a project, interested in it, to keep engaged, and that's what we're talking about, right? Is like the community has to stay interested and engaged and continue talking about it for you to stand the test of time, right?
Yeah.
And I think like part of it too is it's still to stay engaged, you definitely have to be that crypto native person, like you said,
Well,
because for me,
well,
it's like I don't spend a lot of time on Discord. So, like the three NFTs that I think are actually valuable in my wallet, I don't even spend enough time on Discord to know what's new, what's going on, you know?
that's why I think you've got to get away from NFTs and crypto, right? I think NFTs are a means for you to support an artist digitally or to support a brand digitally. It's like no different than like uh owning a physical good, right? Where like you buy an Apple phone because you identify with Apple, the company, the brand, you like their products and their service. You don't really care to know what their encryption standards are, what the latest like microprocessor there is. If you want that information, it's there. Like you can go and they have white papers. They'll tell you which bionic chip is in your phone. But the problem with that being is with NFTs, everyone leads with that. They go in and they get to the nitty gritty. They say, "Hey, this is on this chain. This is doing this is doing that," because it's all nerds. But like the day you get like, I know you're a big fan of Peter Vu. If Peter Vu just said like, "Yo, Ryan, support me. I'm making an art. I'm making these prints. I sketched them on my phone. You can get one.
Hmm.
Here you go." And like I'm just gonna the NFT is just the format that I'm gonna give you the stuff in so that way you can ensure that nobody else has what I'm giving you. Then you're supporting Peter Vu. That community doesn't have to live on Discord. Like it's just like his community is however many people want to support him at any given moment. It's just the NFTs are the format. And basically, like this is why I find what Adobe did this week very fascinating, where they're saying, hey, we're gonna allow you to create the NFT right from the Photoshop application. So we're not even gonna mess around with you exporting this without your metadata being synced. Go ahead, sync your MetaMask. Click the marketplace you want to put this on, and then go ahead and mint right from here. So it's an end-to-end transaction. We're gonna see more of that. And what they're doing is Adobe is saying, look, you already know how to use Photoshop. You ain't got to go and learn Solidity. You don't have to go and learn how to, jump through all these hoops. Just get you a MetaMask wallet and get you an OpenSea account and like figure it out. And like
Hmm.
go and go talk to the people you already know. And like it's gonna be weird, I think, for a little bit because we're in this in-between phase. But as the tech goes to the background and the creators come to the foreground, what's gonna be fascinating is you're gonna see people just do incredible stuff. Like, look at Mike Winkleman. Largely, he's never really talked about NFTs. He just put his
Hmm.
work out there. It was very long, right? He's been doing that for like, 10 plus years. That's a heavy dedication, right? Like
Hmm.
that's dedicated. Uh,
Yeah.
a lot of people aren't 10 years into the game. A lot of people now are 1 year into the game, but there are going to be some people this year that don't talk about NFTs, but been creating what you would call an NFT for a long time. And they're going to be very successful because they're going to learn how to sell without saying Discord, NFT, this and that. And their community is going to trust them because they're not shilling them anything.
I like that take a lot. I think what you're kind of creating is you're redefining it. Instead of thinking about blue chip NFTs, it's like who are the next blue chip digital creators in a sense.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
NFTs are a way to sell your creations as a digital creator. But like, you know, let's just say we moved this current NFT timeline a decade earlier, and it happened instead of in 2021, it happened in 2011. We
Yes.
look at a guy who we admired a lot as a digital creator, Paul Jarvis,
Right.
who puts out software hit after software hit, good books, Like a lot, like he's if you don't know who Paul Jarvis is, go check him out. Like he was our idol as a like a digital nomad who
Yeah,
just
yeah.
created stuff from his basement and like had an audience of 10,000 people who were just going to buy everything that he put out software wise. Like to me, he's got a better chance of being, this blue chip NFT dude than, let's say, only because it's top of the head, like a long necky lady, even though she's young, she's got like Time magazine talking about her. We've got,
It's the
multiple
trust. No, you're spot on. It's the trust. Like the where people and Paul Jarvis are similar is they both have been talking to a community and presenting and showcasing their work for almost 10 plus years.
hmm
Right. And so when they go to the marketplace, whether they want to sell NFTs or they want to sell courses, they're gonna have an advantage over the person that just starts, a generative 10K project in their backyard tomorrow.
hmm Even if that generative 10K project does 10 million in revenue,
Yeah,
I think that's the thing too, is like you kind of have to, if you want to talk about blue chip NFTs, obviously you have to, for your predictions, you have to think about what are valuable ones already, but it can't be the whole equation, because like
for sure.
we seen floor prices dump so quickly. Like I'm looking at Loot for Adventurers. I remember when the floor price on that was like 13 ETH and
Yeah,
it's two today, and
right,
that would have fit my whole mold of like, oh, if you are a category creator or a format creator,
right.
your NFT is going to be blue chip. But guess what? Like it's kind of fallen out of favor.
I think that brands and creators and just concepts that people trust, when they go into this technology and they create their version of an NFT, it automatically is kind of blue chip. Now, I think if the industry wants to acknowledge that or not, I think that that's a fair question to be had. But I think blue chip is an NFT that you can look at and say this comes from a trusted brand or creator. And when I say trust, trust does not mean that you just started your that trust does not mean you're a life coach at 21, right? Like you need to have some years, you need to have some experience, you need to have some credibility and some substance to your name. And that's what allows you to carry it over to your audience. And then there's an education element that needs to take place because your audience might not be crypto savvy. They might not have wallets, they might not be uh fascinated by OpenSea or they might not want to bid, but that doesn't mean you can't use NFTs. It just means that the conduit at which you use and interface with this technology changes. And that's why some of the intermediary uh in between companies like the moon pays where you can buy crypto with a credit card, that stuff is needed because that's what's going to allow a Paul to more easily get into this game because Paul's never going to care about you in his wallet. Like, he
Mhm,
might care about what's going to his wallet, but he's never going to care about what you're doing with your wallet. He's just going to say buy this with a credit card. And like
mhm,
the crypto diehards are going to be like that's not an NFT, but the crypto diehards are missing the key point here. The key point is the NFT is just a technology. The creators are the people that bring in the new wallets and that bring in the new users and that expand people's minds. And so we need to support them and we need to create like less friction between what it is, what it takes to make these things and what it takes to transact these things and what it takes to participate in the whole NFT verse, if that's what you want to call it, because digital
mhm.
collectibles, they've been a thing. It's not like this just magically popped up and it came to life, in 2020 or 2021. Like, we were buying and transacting digital collectibles all the way back in 2015, right?
Mhm.
Like, people looked at us as crazy, but like, I remember you had a fly ass keyboard,
Yeah,
right?
that I did. Yeah.
Yeah, you had skinned your whole keyboard and you were like, "This is a one of one keyboard." And you were walking around and then people were like, "Hey, I want a one of one keyboard." And what did they do? They started buying our digital art. And that's literally how we got a few sales. Ryan used to go around showing people his iPhone keyboard it was a custom skin and they wanted that and so they would go into our store and buy, a one of one edition so that they could make a custom keyboard. And
Mhm,
we got to this point largely because digital objects were a thing then.
mhm,
And like, people just didn't know how to secure them. People didn't know how to transact them. NFTs made it easier, gave a mental model that we can all refer to, and people saw others getting rich. So you saw the early adopters last year go ape into all these projects or go create these projects. But now you have an identity crisis because the projects are there, the communities exist, but we don't know who's going to have staying power. And so
Mhm.
blue chip to me means you don't have to worry about staying power. If I buy a Nike NFT, I have very strong confidence that it's going to be a Nike NFT today, tomorrow, 10 years from now. I don't have that same confidence about some of these meme coins or some of these meme NFT projects that I participate in or I partake in. And that's okay. But to me, those aren't blue chip.
Mm. No, I kind of how I put together or would, you know, a synopsis of what you just kind of mentioned there is like you look at a guy like Jeff Koons and he can put out any type of art that he wants now because he
Right.
has that trust. It doesn't matter what the product is, the project, the end of it, it's like he has created that trust. And yeah, if he wants to, sell dishwashers with, inflatable little dogs in them, he can do that. And so
Hey, shout out to
yeah,
Jeff. He's a hustler
yeah.
and a marketer and an art genius, right? When you see what he's done, I mean, like you got to respect it. But he doesn't talk about the machine washer technology. He calls it art, and he does what he does.
Hmm. Definitely. Cool. I like this. I think the blue chip NFTs. We'll see what comes of them. What ends up becoming, what we consider to be blue chip NFTs. But I think that many of the points we've made here are kind of, you know, elements of it.
For sure, for sure. Man, I'll catch you in the future. And for all the listeners that are checking this out right now, let us know your thoughts, your comments. You can shoot me a tweet on Twitter or you can, send me a DM on Instagram. I'll see all that stuff. And, we want to continue the conversation. Also, if you are watching the video, let us know what your thoughts are. How can we improve this? This is our first rodeo when it comes to, us doing the live stream and recording and editing in real time. So we need to get feedback so we can improve the whole process. So, with that being said, we'll catch all y'all in the future. You can check out more of our content at NFTQT.com. And that's where we post all of the insights and fascinating projects that we stumble upon. And if you want to really go deep into the NFT space, that's where you'll find us.